Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Ahmad Munawar, who is the founder of the 90-Day Pipeline. Ahmad, welcome to the program.
Mike, it's fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, and I'm excited to talk to you because I always love when I do introductions and I see the name of a company, and yours is so descriptive and succinct. It's building a pipeline. Good. We all need that. And then 90 days. So we love that, a time frame. So give us a little background on yourself and then what led you to start your firm 90-Day Pipeline.
Yeah. So actually 90-Day Pipeline is the name of our core offer or program that we sell. The company's name is Boutique Growth. In either case, I am what I would call a accidental marketer. Never wanted to be a marketer, never saw myself as a marketer, didn't grow up thinking when I grow up I want to be a marketer, but kind of fell ass backwards into marketing, if you will. And here's the quick story. I started out, went to business school, decided to go into accounting for God knows what reason. Probably my Indian parents were a big influence on that decision. Went into accounting, joined Ernst and Young, got my letters there, realized I wasn't a very good accountant, wanted to do something more business-oriented and more entrepreneurial. So I had a few friends that had started a consulting firm, and they had one big whale client at the time. Sound familiar? That's how most consulting firms start.
Yep.
You get a whale to pay you some money, right? And then and then you say to yourself, maybe we can turn this into a business. And this is what these friends of mine were thinking to themselves. Problem was they were all on the consulting side. They weren't business people. They didn't understand business. And they looked at me and they said, well, you work at Ernst and Young, you've got these fancy suits and you got this degree. Why don't you come and build this business for us? And I said, sure, even though I knew nothing about building a real business at the time. And I joined that firm, and I was kind of your jack of all trades on the business side: marketing, business development, project management, HR, finance. I mean, you name it, I did it. And that's where I began to appreciate the value and the power of marketing as a function in a business. And I began to study it, and I became obsessed with it, and I cut my teeth in it. And long story short, we were very successful in that firm. We got to seven figures pretty quickly, multiple seven figures, signed some big blue chip clients. And I was taking notes, essentially. I was trying to understand why things work the way that they work, and how do you execute in a marketing strategy in a consulting B2B professional services context. Once I did that, I said to myself, well, there's probably other firms out there who need my help with this because we've kind of figured something out here that's pretty innovative. Why don't I go and farm myself out as a director of marketing for other professional services firms? So I did that for a few years and still taking notes, observing what's working, what's not working, learning, studying. And a few years later, I said to myself, well, I have a solution here that, thousands of consultants and professional service providers who are, getting started or trying to build pipeline or want to get to six figures, want to get to seven figures, that they need. And it's my moral responsibility now to package something that the market can engage with at a larger scale. And that's where the 90-Day Pipeline was born.
I love that transformation really in your mindset of I went from corporate to this to that and then always improve. And I bet you in 30 days you'll have one more little piece of polish that you could put on what you're doing today. And that's the way that it always should go. So I love that story. Give us a little background on maybe the 30,000 foot view on how to fill a pipeline with really good, solid consulting deals, without having to do some of the what I like to call shiny object syndrome kind of things like, hey, look, Facebook Messenger bots, those work for this industry. I guess they'll work for consulting. I don't think so, but I'm sure some people do. But if you talk about Facebook Messenger bots, please forgive me. But give me like the 30,000 foot view of what your approach is.
No, I don't know anybody that's won a sizable consulting deal through Facebook Messenger bots. But I'm open to be proven wrong. That's the thing.
Yeah, really.
It is. So a couple of things that are really important to get right when it comes to building pipeline. One is having a very narrow focus. So, the management consultant is a very meaningless term. Right? It's one that people use a whole lot. Ask any consultant, what do you do? And 9 out of 10 of them will respond with, well, I'm a consultant or I'm a management consultant. And the audience is left wondering, what in the world does that possibly mean, right? And so the first key is really narrowing your focus. We want to go from being wandering generalities to meaningful specifics. And most consultants are wandering generalities. They pride themselves on being able to solve a wide array of business problems for a wide array of clients and prospects. And they almost wear that, as a badge of honor. I can solve any problem. Right? Look at me, I'm so smart, I can solve any problem. And that may be fine and good, but if the market doesn't know what bucket to put you in, you're dead in the water. Right? They need to know what to make of you. And if they don't know what to make of you, you're only going to win deals from the people who have a really high degree of trust and firsthand experience working with you, which is a decidedly small number of people. So the first key is getting really narrow in your focus. You want to go from being a management consultant to being an operations consultant for SaaS businesses between $2 and $10 million, for example.
Yep.
Right?
So
that for that market, that's meaningful. They hear that and they go, oh, well, maybe I need somebody like you. Whereas
or that's me.
Last time I checked, nobody gets up in the morning and says, I need a management consultant.
Yep. But I love where you're going with that, and it makes me think of a really great book. So have you read Built to Sell?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I love the concept because it is, hey, don't be all these graphic design, services and products for all of your clients. Do logos, and that's all you do, and you get spectacular at it. So, once you dial in your deliverable and what you're known for, it really is kind of like a liberating feeling. In fact, literally yesterday, I was on the phone talking with a real big influencer in a specific niche, and he was just asking some questions about what I do, and it came up. I said, hey, I don't even know that you have a podcast. It's buried all in the back of your website, and you need to make that front and center and let people know, and just give them some tips on that. And then I just said, and another thing is, how do you repurpose that? Because you should have, transcription and blog, all these normal things, right? And he's like, wow, I know that's, is that something you could help with? And I'm like, oh my word, this guy could just, and I said, no. I don't do that. My focus is, and I listed that back out, and I said, but you can find that service easily through, virtual assistants. So I know in years past, maybe 5 years ago, I would have jumped on it going, I can do it. Let's get it done, and would have made $1 or $2 on it, but it's not my area of expertise, and it would detract me from where my bigger deliverable is. So what you bring up there is so, so important. So what's next? What do you work with your clients once they get that polished up?
Well, and I'll add you a little bit more color to that too. It's interesting. When we have clients that come in and work with us inside the 90-day pipeline, one of the first things that we have them do is segment their market. What are the different types of clients you could be working with? And somebody might say, well, I could go after, tier 2 banks, or I could go after, small healthcare firms. I could go after this, that, and the other. And they actually list them out. And then we have an objective exercise where we rank and prioritize those markets. But, every single time, predictably at this stage, when the client looks at those markets and we ask them, well, where do you think it makes the most sense to invest your time and energy? Because that's precisely what you're doing. You're investing into that market. There's almost always a clear winner. And if there isn't a clear winner, there's some data that we can get to define a clear winner. And the client can see themselves once they do the exercise that it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be so broad and just kind of roll the dice and to see where the traction is going to be when we can, pick a path that's far more specific and go down that path. And so that's something that we see time and time again. From there, that's the who, right? That's now we know who we're going after. Now we know who we're communicating with. Now we know the audience, right? Now, and the second question becomes, why should they choose you? Positioning, which I know is also your forte, and I'd love to hear your take on this, but to me, positioning is really simply the answer to the question, why you?
Yeah.
Why should the market choose you? Unless you have an offer that nobody else has, which is very rare, chances are there's a long list of people that the client could hire instead of you. There's a long list of competitors and alternatives available to the client. And unless you're really clear on why they should choose you over the competition, you're dead in the water. Now, the good news is you don't need to be the best option in the marketplace for everybody. You have to be the best option in the marketplace for the clients that you particularly want to serve. And that's the second piece that we help clients dial in is their story, their narrative, their message that clearly distinguishes them in the marketplace.
And I will kind of bat the ping pong ball back over to you regarding positioning, because from an academic standpoint, positioning is how your brand is viewed in the mind of the consumer or the target audience. So it's not your branding, it's not your logo. That's an tiny element, bullet point of it. But no matter what industry or service that you are consulting, coaching on, you've got one of these things called a competitor, right? So we all have competitors. And just because you sent that email or got that LinkedIn or scheduled the call for tomorrow to talk to a prospective client, they're not only talking to you, they're talking to other people. And I'll give you another little clue. And here's a little writer downer book that would be great if you've not already read this. But it's all based on the breadcrumb trail, the ZMOT, the zero moment of truth. And sometimes you will not get that phone call, phone appointment, email, inbound lead, because when someone researched the industry or was referred to you, they didn't see much. So what I will say is there's a little phrase I just been resonating with me for so many months now. The message is the medium. And it in a nutshell means this: you could have this solution to someone's problem regarding that SaaS company, let's just say in your example, and you could write up this, 2,000 word blog post that just clearly lays it out. And it's a nice piece. And it's like, if someone reads this with an open mind, they're going to call me and we're going to do business. But if you put that up on your WordPress website, people go, oh, okay, cool. It's a blog post. And the barrier to entry for that is like, meh. If you put it on your Facebook, okay, oh, that's good info, and it might, generate a little bit, but they know Facebook is just a social media platform. If you read it in front of, your video camera and did a Facebook Live, YouTube Live, they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But they know that also is a low barrier to entry. It's a free but now, if they were to read that in a Forbes article, they're like, ooh, I need to bookmark that and go back to it again. If they were to read it in a book, if they were to hear it on a podcast. So the medium, the platform that they're hearing the message or seeing your brand, all of a sudden elevates yourself. So not that you need to be seen on CNN, but you need to be seen by your target audience in such an elevated status so that when they hear or read what you're saying, it really sinks in, and that gets you only what? The at bat. It doesn't close the deal. You still got to be, confident and caring and all of those things. So that's kind of my take on that. Is that a little bit of how you train your clients?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. See, the reality is the vast majority of consultants, which is certainly my market, or anybody that sells a B2B service, they're not even thinking about producing anything. That's at least our finding. They're not in the marketing world. They're not producing insights. They're not writing that blog post. They're not doing that YouTube or that Facebook Live. They're not doing these things, right? And so I think you're absolutely spot on. Being featured on a notable industry publication, right, or on a notable industry podcast, or in a magazine like Forbes or what have you, that establishes some credibility. A lot of people just need to start publishing insights wherever they can publish them. It's like so.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere
right now, and that's exactly. And because there's a skill in that, right? There's a muscle that you need to develop to, one, think of creative ideas of how to communicate with your marketplace, create that communication, engage the marketplace in a conversation. That's a muscle. And a lot of folks just don't have that muscle right now and need to build it. And that's a big part of what we focus on, is how do we consistently generate high quality insights that we can put in front of our target market. And the way that I think about it is like this. Most consultants are pretty good when they're one-on-one with a prospect, and people say this stuff all the time. I'm really good if you get me in the room with a prospect or client that has a problem that I solve. Well, I would expect you to be good in that context. It's not terribly complicated. But their interactions are currently largely limited to those one-to-one interactions. If they get into a room or they get onto a Zoom call, then that's the extent of their interaction with the marketplace. But marketing, content, thought leadership, whatever you want to call it, presents an opportunity to communicate with your market at scale. So every time you publish something, maybe in the beginning it's 100 people see it, 200, 500, 1,000 eventually. Every time you publish an insight, you are communicating with the market at scale, and now the entire market, to the extent that they're relevant to you, gets a little bit closer to working with you. And that's the foundational piece that we help clients with is getting into that flow, that rhythm of producing authentic, genuine, insightful thought leadership.
And that reminds me of something that I learned, and I see that you're a ClickFunnels user. So Russell Brunson teaches this about doing a webinar. So once you dial in your webinar presentation, you do it, and I probably will murder the example, but like you do it every day for 100 days, or you do it every week for 100 weeks. You do it 100 times, and I don't care if 2 people show up, or 4 or 0, you do it and you do it and do it, you deliver it, because every time you do it, you get smoother, you get more confident, and then maybe the 4 people that are on the next one, when they ask questions, you learn from those questions and you tweak your next one and you add a FAQ section. So doing it over and over again kind of harkens both to that as well as the Gladwell 10,000 hours, right? You can't get really smooth and confident in what you do unless you have just done it and it just flows off the tip of your tongue.
And you have to continue to show up, right? A lot of folks misunderstand the way that the market works, which is that if someone's in your market, doesn't mean they're ready to buy. As a rule of thumb, only about 1 to 3% of your market's in a buying position. Everybody else isn't quite there yet. But they may be there in the near future, right? So, in our business, we generate, I don't know, to the tune of 3,000 leads, 4,000 leads a month. But again, only 1 to 3% of them are good to buy right now. Everybody else may get there in a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. So if we stop showing up, we're not going to be able to capitalize on the opportunities that exist 3 months from now.
Yep. I find myself consciously doing something that almost tests the follow-up of people that I am interested in. Meaning this, let's say that I found something that I really wanted to consider taking advantage of, some tool, and it's like, I'm just not ready right this minute, but I'm going to click on their Facebook sponsored ad, and I'm going to click on the email that they sent me, hoping that they've got retargeting pixels, hoping that they've got something in their email that triggers, they might clicked on this, so I'm going to send them the follow-up, or I'm going to see it again, because I'm going, you know what, I'm just not ready today, but I want to be in their sphere, a follow-up. And if, just like what you just said, if someone gets this lead and they don't buy right this minute, okay, that's the way that it works, but you better stay in touch. You better be giving good quality content. And my feeling is, it's kind of like, follow up until they buy or die, but not every day, not, all the time, but, just be there consistently through different mediums, maybe an email here, maybe a Facebook post there. But the point is, you need to be teaching and being that educator and that advocate for the target audience that you focus on, so that they understand that you're teaching, you're educating, not pushing and trying to sell.
I mean, that's fascinating. And I think I probably exhibit very similar behaviors. That's because you and I are skewed more sophisticated on the marketing side. So we know that these are smart marketers running their businesses. They're going to retarget us. They're going to get us onto their email list, and there's going to be some nurturing. And we kind of rely on that. But your average consumer probably doesn't rely on that, even though there is a level of interest there. And if you're not strong on the follow-up and you're not getting in front of them consistently, then they're going to forget about you. But if you do, you're able to then water that seed that you initially planted.
100%. And guess what? You don't have to worry about, this is so overwhelming. There are some wonderful automation and tools and follow-ups and all of these things that you can do so that you're in front of your audience. And I feel like if all you did was email, then it makes it easy to go, okay, enough already, unsubscribe, or let me create an Outlook or a Gmail filter or rule, and I'm done seeing that. So it's got to be a little of this, a little of that, and coming at them from different angles in a consistent fashion, and I know that that's something that keeps it fresh as well. So let's wrap up with what would you say is the one of the triggers or one of the flags in a coach or consultant's business that would go, you know what, I kind of need this some more help here, and then what's the best way that they can reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, really simply, the trigger is if you don't know where your next client is coming from. If you're kind of hoping that something lands on your lap, but maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, then you should probably reach out and we should have a conversation. Best way to start that conversation is head over to 90daypipeline.com. It'll ask you to sign up for a free workshop where we'll show you our entire process end to end. You can study that. And then by all means, feel free to take it and run with it. But if it makes sense to chat and talk about applying that to your business, then we can do that as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Ahmad. I really appreciate your time, number one, but also I love talking about this topic because we are of like mind, and it's great to pull some little nuggets of truth from our experience. So it's just a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is all mine, my friend.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.